Good morning, everyone. My name is Bruce Scott, and I will be cheering us along today. But before we go any further, I am going to pray. Let us pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Jamaica. We thank you for the burning fire that you placed in the hearts of our founding fathers when the wind of nationalism and patriotism blew so strong in the 60s. And we're so thankful that today you've blessed us with the presence of Mr. Fillmore Ogle and maybe others who were around at that time online. Lord, we thank you for their vision. And we thank you that they would have lived to see the documentation of the first 50-plus years of this great institute. Help us to have a wonderful launch today. We thank you for our online viewers as well as everyone who is physically present. In Jesus' precious name, amen. Amen. So it is indeed a pleasure on behalf of the ICJ to welcome you to this, our historic book launch, to the history book. And the title of the book is A Brief History of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Jamaica, 1965 to 2016. Which is why I said 50-ish. Well, we had to debate that. We debated that one. I guess Professor Brand could tell you a little bit about that. Written by Professor Brand, Professor Emeritus of the University of the West Indies. So allow me to acknowledge, and I did it in the prayer, our founding member, Mr. Fillmore Ogle, and I'll say a little bit more about Mr. Ogle in my opening remarks. Our president, Alison Peart, energetic Peart, and you'll see some of that when she comes to the microphone. Council members who are online and in the audience, ICJ members, students. A special welcome to Ms. Hope Monroe, Deputy Chief Financial Officer, Officer of Finance, UWI Regional Headquarters, and we are mentioning UWI because of the University Press's role in helping us to publish. Mr. Michael Williams, Lecturer, Mona School of Business and Management. And of course, he's no longer the CFO, and we already would have acknowledged them indirectly, but I would also like to acknowledge Dr. Archibald Campbell over there, who is a past president, among other things, and other guests of the University of the West Indies. And of course, we cannot leave out Mrs. Nadine Buckland and her team from the UWI Press, who worked tirelessly with us in the background. Now, so this is a historic occasion, but I think I want to spend one quick minute, and this is what I'm about to say is actually in the foreword of the book, which happened to have been written by yours truly. But I think the context is important, and I'm looking at Fillmore, because when we had the 50th brunch in either 15 or 16, I was sitting, Fillmore, myself, Dennis Goldson, Lisa Goldson, Suzette Scott, and it's all in the book, one more person. And somebody said, you know, guys, we're all doing this 50th thing. Maybe we should write a book. And Fillmore said, yeah, that would be good. And he started giving us some of the history of the Institute. And then Elaine and myself went to visit Jasper at his house. And Jasper said, Bruce, you know, I'd written something on the first 25 years. You should, you know, lead the charge with a book. Anyway, the long and short of it is that we had a small team that came together, and we're here today. Elaine Robinson, myself, Angela Reed, who is no longer with us, may God bless her soul, Rosemary Heaven, and then Maxine, our new PRO, came on the scene. And of course, we worked tirelessly with Professor Brand and consulted where we needed to with our president, Alison Peart. So that's a brief history. It's all in the book. And that's how we are here today. So to start us off, I'd like to invite our president, Ms. Alison Peart, to come to the microphone. She's been with the ICJ and in the accounting profession in total for 30 years. She's a Canadian chartered professional accountant with extensive audit experience in the Big Four firms, serving a wide range of clients, local, regional, European, as well as companies in Canada and the US, and that's the abbreviated version of Alison's bio. Can you show some love for our president, Alison Peart?
Thanks, Bruce. You had to say 30 years, eh? And look here, the maths don't add with my real age. Yes, September 11th, 1992 was when I started off as a junior in accounting, fresh out of the University of Toronto, sitting in downtown Toronto on Bay Street, and look where I am now. I think I've improved my lot. More of us need to come back home, right? Nothing better than your yard. And I'm from country. Those of you that don't know, I was born in Hanover, and I love my country roots. And I keep saying when the business of accounting is over, I'm going back to farming with the Lucy Yam. And we have a past council member, Dennis Brown, that I keep teasing that he needs to come and farm some land. So stay tuned. When we retire, we will have some farming, because without food, we don't live, right? I want to hear one person say right. Okay. Mr. Fillmore Ogle, it is such an honor to have you here. You know, when you see the amazing people that have come and built Jamaica, built institutions like the ICAJ, and to have them with us, it's such an honor. We have past presidents here. We have past presidents online. We have council members here, both past and present. We have Professor Patrick Bryan, who I'm not sure he realized how exciting the accounting profession was until he started this venture. And we're exciting, are we not? Hold on. We're exciting, are we not? Oh my goodness, it's about 2 people nod. I'm sure online they're clapping. And we need our own TV series. It can't be everybody else. Agreed? Again, 1 person. If we're not excited about our profession. Well, I'm excited about this book. Audience, Yui, even the people who are working on the audiovisual, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you spending time with us, because time is money. And I want to give you a special welcome to this launch of a brief history of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Jamaica, 1965 to 2016. I can't believe we're already in 2022. But we have to start somewhere. This week, October 2nd to 7th, we celebrate Chartered Accountants Week. We are so excited we don't just get a day. Today is Chartered Accountants Day, so happy Chartered Accountants Day. Give yourself an applause. The Governor General has this entire week because we're such wonderful people. And our theme this year is sustaining our future with integrity, because you know if you don't have integrity, you don't have a future. So with this week being so important to us, it's also Heritage Month. You know, the colors of the ICAJ very closely match the country. So we always have to remember our heritage. So not only as a country, as you know, Jamaica celebrates its Diamond Jubilee, but as an institute, we have to know our history, because if you don't know your history, you're not going very far. So I think it's fitting for us to use this opportunity to launch our very own history book. And I must commend the history book subcommittee. Bruce Scott, please stand. Let us give you a round of applause. Elaine Robinson, please stand. So we also give you a round of applause. And I torment her, Rosie. Yes, you're part of the ICAJ, so please stand. Without you, I'm sure. And Maxine, where's Maxine? Maxine ran away. Please stand. Give them a round of applause. Because these are the people who kept this book alive. And members of the council, we kept hearing about the wonderful book, and we were happy to have this team orchestrating the publication date. Now, nothing happens before its time, right, Bruce?
Amen, sister.
So, you know, we've been asking and asking and asking, and as Jamaicans, we say soon come, but I'm proud to say come reach. Amen. Excellent. So the soon come is here. Agreed? Oh, is there 2 people said they're happy? Amen. All right, good, very good. I want to make sure you know, you prayed for us, we have to have an amen. So nothing ever comes before its time, and so we're happy to be here. It's an easy read. It's got lots of pictures. I love pictures too, you know, because you see how wonderful we age. As Jamaicans, we always age gracefully. So when I see and I look back and see some of the styles and fashion, it's amazing to see that, you know, we're keeping with the times. First 50 years, and we have a lot more years. So as you will notice when you purchase your copy, it's like reading superhero. You know, we always talk about Marvel, and we talk about various comic book heroes. Phil Ogle is our original hero, him and all of those guys that came before us. They call them the founding fathers, the Young Turks. I really need to talk to him about where this Young Turk term came from, but we will have that one away. And having him here, I can't stress enough. I must say again, thank you, Mr. Ogle, for having the vision, because a lot of us talk, but few of us actually get things moving. So thank you, and I hope you're still proud of us. Round of applause for him, please. Our national hero, the right excellent Marcus Mosiah Garvey once said, and I quote, "A people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots." As chartered accountants in Jamaica, we have now created our own story, and I believe that we have a moral imperative to tell that story and to continue to tell the story about ourselves. We don't want other people telling our story. We must tell the story for ourselves. So in doing so, we pass on the values of integrity, ethical and moral principles to new entrants into the profession. Because if your accountant isn't ethical and has integrity, we're going to have problems. We are the pillars of Jamaica. Agreed? Everybody has to have some accounting. So we've been waiting on this publication, and as I said before, anything that is worth having is worth waiting for. When you get things too quick, you don't appreciate them. So we really appreciate this book. And I'm happy to be able to say we secured the services of Distinguished Professor Emeritus of the University of the West Indies, Professor Patrick Bryan, CD. Clap him, because he immersed himself in the depths of the ICAJ to unearth our interesting history. And people just think accountants boring, but as he will tell you, we're exciting. Good. So I encourage our members, students, please buy a book. It is going to be available here at the ICAJ. And remember, we have a business conference tomorrow morning. Starts at 9, it's online and at the Pegasus. The books will be there for sale, and we have a lime. We're liming with integrity on Friday. Register for the lime. Come and purchase a book, because we will have them on sale. We really want to get our story out there. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here in person. Thank you for being online. And all that's left for me to say is happy reading. I really think this is an amazing book. And with literacy being something we want to promote, we're not just numbers. Enjoy the read. Back to you. Mike Shear.
Thank you, Alison. I did say that Alison is full of energy, and that was affirmation for those who are already familiar with the energy of our president. Can you show some more love to Alison Energy Peart? At this time, we're going to invite Professor Patrick Bryan, CD, to come and give us what we're calling the author's response. But before he does that, I just want to give you a little 35,000 feet on Professor Bryan. Professor Patrick Earl Bryan, CD, is Professor Emeritus of the Department of History and Archaeology at UWI, or at the University of the West Indies, Mona. He's a Woolbarian, and we forgive you for that. And I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. True blue. And pursued tertiary studies at the University of the West Indies, University of Texas, and University of London. Professor Bryan is an accomplished author, hence his name was at the very top, thanks to Elaine Robinson, of the list when ICAJ decided to commission this masterpiece, which we are launching today. And in just summarizing on Professor Bryan, his publications include Marcus Garvey, His Work and Impact, The Jamaican People, 1880 to 1902, Race, Class, and Social Control, and of course, the more recently published for those online, I hope you can see that, or you saw that. So, to give us the author's response and some of the tough decisions, late calls, you probably don't need to give all those stories, after which he'll present a copy of our book to our president, Alison Peart. Welcome, Professor Patrick Earl Bryan, CD, maybe soon to be OJ, I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ogle, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how familiar you are with the story of King Henry VIII of England. As you know, he had 6 wives. He executed at least 2, beheaded them, divorced about 2, and I think 1 outlived him. So he must have said to them at some point, "I won't keep you long." I thank the ICAJ for the opportunity to record its history and indirectly the history of accounting in Jamaica. I think it was Mrs. Elaine Robinson, Honorary Secretary, who first suggested the project to me, and I hope that her faith has been justified. At the time that I was invited to write the history of the ICAJ, I had no idea that it would become, for me, one further study of voluntary and educational institutions in Jamaica. My first effort on voluntary institutions was a book I wrote, I think around 1990-something, on philanthropy and social welfare in Jamaica. And subsequently, I did a study on the Kiwanis of Jamaica. And while writing this book, I was also writing a history of the Joint Board of Teacher Education. That's after I had retired. Voluntary and educational institutions are not, however, alike. All institutions have their own reason for existence, develop their own cultures, and adapt their experience to the environment in which they were born. It is true that the Jamaican accounting environment was partly influenced by the notorious factionalism of British accountancy, which made it all the more necessary to unify the profession in Jamaica. Institutional foundations also have strong influences from strong personalities. The ICAJ is no exception. It was created in 1965 as a nationalistic response to the domination of the profession by British expatriate firms, and to change the pattern of exclusion of Jamaicans from the field, and to unify the profession. But the founders, who dubbed themselves Young Turks, had a vision not only to transfer the center of accountancy from London to Kingston, but to build an indigenized profession run by Jamaicans for Jamaicans, leading initially to strategic alliances at first with the UWI and CAST. The possibility of success for this budding organization was enhanced by the gradual retreat of British colonialism and the rise of a constitutional movement for independence in Jamaica. It was founded indeed 3 years after Jamaica's independence. The vision of the Young Turks to create a thoroughly indigenized profession, meaning with its own regulations, its own examinations, its own certification, its own ethics, has not been achieved in its entirety, but the aggression with which they challenged the status quo was such that some of them were dubbed, labeled communist. The rhetorical flourish of some of the Young Turks, who described English institutions as, quote, a disgusting reminder of imperialism, end of quote, may have encouraged the charge of communism. One of the Young Turks is, of course, with us today, Mr. Fillmore Ogle. The British-based ACCA, inclined to be more inclusive than other accounting institutions, proved a useful partner and mentor in the foundation and evolution of the ICAJ. Today, the ICAJ is well established. From 20 members in 1965, it had a membership of 1,200 in 2016. From 242 students in 1969, the student enrollment grew to over 1,100 in 1979 and peaked at 5,000 in 2007. The Secretariat grew from 4 or 5 people in 1978 to 13 in 2000. In what I consider the consolidation and evolution after its foundation in January 1965, there are just 5 outstanding considerations I wish to isolate, or just 5, there are several others. One was the steady internationalization of accounting practice, which may very well have dampened the urgency for indigenization, but which committed the ICAJ to adopt international accounting standards. Nowhere was this more evident than at the end of the 20th and the early 21st century, when local financial crisis, international recession, and the establishment of the World Trade Organization led to the formulation of practice along international lines and the restructuring of relations between the ICAJ and the Public Accountancy Board. The second consideration, which is partly political and partly the question of identity, was the ideological strain of the 1970s, which on the one hand encouraged the emigration of several accountants and on the other started to streamline the links between the ICAJ and the PSOJ, followed by a clearer and closer alliance with the business sector in the 1980s. All this was associated with a growing shift by the ICAJ from a strong focus on student preparation for accountancy to a greater emphasis on national economic policy and public education. The third consideration was the encouragement of a Caribbean apex body that led to the establishment of ICAC in 1989, and in due course, the promotion of the movement of professionals within the Caribbean, particularly after the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas and the optimistic belief, inevitably dashed, that the Caribbean was at last overcoming its insularity. A fourth consideration which attracted my personal interest were the temporary, as it turned out, the temporary tense relations between the UWI and ICAJ, which signified a deeper conflict between the academic and the professional. The fifth, and I think this is very important, was a gradual shift of the institution from a male-dominated institution at its inception in 1965 with 20 men to one where membership and the share of administrative responsibility are distributed almost equally between men and women. There are other things, of course, that reflect the institutional evolution of the ICAJ. We cannot ignore, for instance, the establishment of a second tier of accountants or the establishment of offices at Ruthven Road, a continuous exercise that initially generated strong arguments for and against within the ICAJ. There's one prominent member who offered his resignation. But the offices at 8 Ruthven Road are a monument to the ICAJ and a genuine tribute to the nature of the evolution of this society. And there's the dedication of the ICAJ to promote the welfare of its students. My chapter on students and the world of the ACCA tries to record both the challenges posed by students and the various efforts made by the ICAJ to accommodate their desires. So I won't say anything more about the book because I think the ICAJ would love you to purchase a copy. But I will end by expressing my gratitude to all those past presidents whom I interviewed, including Mr. Fillmore Ogle. I think he was the first person I interviewed, who in the early 1960s was one of the most fiery and focused of the Young Turks. And the late Jasper Burnett, whom I interviewed twice before his death, one of the earlier presidents and editor of the work on the first 25 years of the Institute. I thank the late Mrs. Angela Reed Gordon, who took a personal interest in the project and set up all the interviews. Her successor, Ms. Maxine Francis, has been no less cordial in keeping the press and the publications committee in communication. I thank also the various efforts of the various editors of the manuscript, Ms. Maxine McDonough and Ms. Siobhan Hearn of the University Press. Thanks to generally to the University Press and particularly Mrs. Nadine Buckland, who went beyond the call of duty to accommodate some last-minute changes and queries. I had not anticipated, by the way, that the project would lead to the renewal of old acquaintances. Ventura Bernard, a student at Clarendon College when I taught there in 1965 to 66, and who re-emerged in my study of the Kiwanis in Jamaica as a highly successful Kiwanian. Donald Reynolds, with whom I taught at Meadowbrook in 1962, and Archibald Campbell, whom I met in my later years at UWI, usually over lunch. I met other people too, the remarkable Bruce Scott, an energetic Christian giant, and Mrs. Rosemary Heaven, Executive Director of the ICAJ, she with a smile in her voice. So thanks again, and I hope you enjoy reading my contribution to the history. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Brand. Guys, I encourage you to read this book. The thing that struck me when I read it the first time was that it's got into some historical things about bookkeeping on the plantations. And I said, I didn't expect the book to have this angle. I thought you were just going to tell us about when the building was built. It is really amazing, the perspectives that Professor Brand, and I actually said this to Professor Brand privately. So at this time, we're going to ask Professor Brand to stand, and we're going to ask our president to maybe out there, so the benefit of the camera, to hand a copy of the book, Professor Brand to hand our president, Alison, a copy of the book. Yeah. Just give us a few seconds to get the logistics. And after that, we're going to be playing the 50th anniversary song and video, so you can have that on standby for us, please. Thank you. You good?
He said he's giving you one more just in case. You see the thing that it's because there's a man from Jericho in the book from Hanover.
Come on, guys, show some more appreciation to our hardworking author and our hardworking president. And at this juncture, we're going to play our 50th anniversary song and video presentation, a very appropriate song given the context of this book, which documents our 50-ish years of existence.
Before the ICAJ was established on January 18, 1965, there was no single point of reference for the accountancy profession in Jamaica. Instead, it was dominated by expatriates from England and North America, with 3 accounting associations operating independently. And only the privileged few Jamaicans could afford the hallowed British experience. But within the ranks of the Jamaica District Society of the Association of Certified and Corporate Accountants was a group named the Young Turks. Fillmore Ogle, Carol Thorburn, Alvin McClure, and Vernon Chang Aloy, who dared to dream of a unified profession regulated by its own statute, establishing its own code of ethics and certification. Led by these young Turks, the Jamaica District Society of the Association of Certified and Corporate Accountants drafted a bill from prototypes of legislation in other jurisdictions and agitated for consensus among the 3 professional accountancy bodies. And so the die was cast. However, success was not immediate. For almost 4 years, discussion, often characterized by bitter disagreements, continued. But on the eve of independence in 1962, the draft bill was submitted to the Ministry of Trade and Industry, signaling consensus among the differing groups. This set the stage for the realization of the dream, as the bill paved the way for the establishment of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Jamaica in 1965 and its incorporation under the Public Accountancy Act of 1968, with the mandate to regulate the practice of accountancy in Jamaica. True to the vision of the Founding Fathers, the Public Accountancy Act mandates the ICAJ to make provision for the training, education, and examination of persons engaging in the profession. The signing of the ICAJ-ACCA Joint Examination Scheme Agreement in 1965 is therefore a watershed agreement in the realization of that vision. Other milestones on the Institute's scoreboard: in 1975, the University of the West Indies accepts ICAJ's proposal for the introduction of the MSc degree in accounting, signaling a new route of entry to the profession. 1988, ICAJ's leadership is the catalyst for the formation of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of the Caribbean, providing a professional networking forum for accountants in the English-speaking region. ICAJ past President Aulus Madden is unanimously elected to serve as the first president of the ICAC. 2001, ICAJ's first female president, C. Patricia Hale, appointed to serve on the International Federation of Accountants Compliance Committee. 2002, ICAJ facilitates Jamaica's adoption of international financial reporting standards.
I acknowledge them, and on behalf of the ICAJ, I thank them for having accepted our invitation to guide and update us on the application of IFRS and international accounting standards in Jamaica.
2003, ICAJ signs agreement with IDB for grant funding for a capacity building project to fast-track implementation of international accounting standards. 2010, ICAJ Council member Dennis Brown is invited to serve on the International Standards on Accounting and Reporting Consultative Group formed by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD. 2011, ICAJ signs Practice Monitoring Agreement launched by the Public Accountancy Board in partnership with the Institute of Chartered Accountants of the Caribbean and the ACCA to enhance the quality of auditing and financial reporting in Jamaica. 2012, ICAJ member Pamela Monroe Ellis is elected to the board of the International Federation of Accountants to represent the Caribbean and Latin American region. From a fledgling body in 1965, the ICAJ now boasts over 1,200 members and must take credit for the prominence the accountancy profession has gained in Jamaica, coupled with the recognition it commands internationally. These successes wouldn't have been possible without the dedication of its members and benefactors, who also played a critical role upgrading the building housing the Secretariat.
The dreams of our founding fathers are now bearing fruit. Proud and strong, this is where we belong. Through strife and hardship, we never sway. Institute of Chartered Accountants of Jamaica, we are the ICAJ. ICAJ, keep the dream alive. ICAJ, together we survive. ICAJ, Golden Jubilee. ICAJ, Vera et Digne. Reference point for chartered accountants, producing nation builders, leaders in our community, financial professionals, business advisors, members, associates, affiliates. Let's keep the dream alive. ICAJ, keep the dream alive. ICAJ, together we survive. ICAJ, Golden Jubilee. ICAJ, Vera Etting 50 years of stellar service, Golden Association with each practice, building on our gains, charting our future. With one accord we must say, in God we trust to lead the way. ICAJ, keep the dream alive. ICAJ, together we survive. ICAJ, a golden jubilee. ICAJ, Vera Etting. ICAJ, keep the dream alive. ICAJ, together we survive. ICAJ, a golden jubilee. ICAJ, Vera Etting.
Make some noise. Yeah, you know, I actually forgot that the song that you heard, it was composed by one of our members, and I think we had a competition, and I think, is it Audrey something? Right there. Oh, come on, stand, let's big you up. Remind me of your full name. You see, I don't know how I remember these things. Audrey, I wasn't far off. Audrey Malcolm, come, let's show some love for that wonderful song. All right, Madam President, you know, you sit in that office and we have to make sure we continue to give you the work that you've been doing so well. So I'm going to invite you to go in front again, and you're going to be asked to make some presentations. And the first is going to be to our founding member, Mr. Fillmore Ogle. We're going to ask Mr. Ogle to come. And Alison is going to make a presentation, after which one is going to be done from the National Library, and then the main library, UB, Mona. So over to our president and these three presentations.
You know, I didn't come here from a beauty at the work. I came from a coat. It's the shoes, right? Oh, yes, thanks, Maxine. Boy, you know, it's so wonderful to be with the program. This is our superhero. Give her a round of applause. Since you wrote the book. But you know, in this book, I talk about Lucy and Jericho and Hannibal. This book makes you realize some of the people from our country root are part of the institute. Hey, do you hear this? Read with relish and cherish what I read. Can I see that? With the data protection, I can give permission, right? Thank you so much for, boy, you're a national treasure.
All right, guys, can we show some appreciation one more time to our founding father, Fillmore Ogle. And we're going to invite Miss Keisha Myers, Manager Collections from the National Library of Jamaica, to come.
See, the library's alive and well. Without reading, we're done. It's not true? Right. Thank you.
And then we're going to ask Ms. Dion Barnett, Senior Librarian, Jamaica Library Service, if you're here, to come. Keep those hands going. Thank you for that presentation, Ms. Dion. One more. We are going to ask Mrs. Jessica Lewis Marshall, Acting Campus Librarian. And I see Main Library, Yui, Mona. Thank you. I don't understand that. Duh. Anyway, I know what you mean.
No, because the fathers also are part of us. We have to give thanks to them. Not true.
Amen. 24 chromosomes each. So I agree. 48. Thanks, Alison, for those presentations, and thanks to the recipients. We're going to go into a little bit of a ceremonial thing now. So this room, historically, we've called it, up until a few seconds to come, it's been known as the utility room. But as of this moment in time, it will be known as the, anybody wants to guess? The Founders Room, in honor of the Founding Fathers. And so again, we're going to ask our hard-working president, because our mother, she's here, and our father, to unveil a photo in honor of our founding fathers. And the photo is literally around the back there. So, Alison, can you journey?
The Young Turks and the Founding Father and the Founders Room. So, oops, you want to help me with this, sir? I'll give you one there and I'll hold it. That's right. You hold the picture. I hold the picture. Right? Look at that.
Thank you, Alison, and thanks, Mr. Ogo. So this room is now the and we are all privileged to be in the presence of one of the. All right. So before Elaine Robinson comes to give the vote of thanks, we're going to ask Mr. Fillmore Ogo to just give a few remarks, right? There's absolutely no way we could have this distinguished gentleman in here and not even, So he has agreed to just say a few words. And can you show some warm 50 plus years worth of pent up love?
President Peart, Chairman Scott, Professor Bryan, representatives of the Institute and of the UWI. A tale and a story are not always one and the same. Stories are read in books. Tales are heard from people who profess to know everything about something. On another day, if you please, I will tell you a tale both in school and out of school about your coat of arms. I don't think you'll read that in the book. To some extent, it will be a lurid tale, believe me. But I leave it to you to arrange it if you wish.
Give us a
You
sketch.
can give us a sketch. We
You know?
can take a piece now,
35,000 feet.
That will keep us coming back with the tale.
A, B, and C were three partners in my old firm. We often met to express ideas which we hoped would become woven into the fabric of the Institute. On this day, B said, I think the Institute should have a coat of arms. C said, what for? And B said, every entity of any eminence had a coat of arms. What's more, it needed to have a motto which should be in Latin. And C said, why not have it in plain English? And B said, you need it in Latin to preserve the pretense of eminence. So B said, let me think of a few words. So there was long silence while C was doodling. He was always doodling during discussions. Sometimes you could recognize the output. Sometimes you couldn't recognize whatever he did with anything that you know of. So at the end of this silence, B said, I think the motto ought to be vere et digni. And C said, well, that's bad grammar. No C knew no grammar, no Latin whatsoever. So this was astounding. A, being the arbitrator usually, said, look, let's ask an expert in Latin whether it was good Latin grammar. And since the only experts were teachers of Latin in secondary schools, we decided to ask a teacher at Alpha Academy. Teacher looked at the three words and said, there is no room for bad grammar here. It's just two adverbs with a conjunction in between. So it's good grammar. Now you all know the three words. and you relate very readily to very, meaning truly, but I'm sure many of you will have some difficulty in relating to digne. Well, it's an adverb derived from an adjective, which means proper, fitting, fair, and above all, worthy. So that digne means, among other things, worthily, which B thought was fitting for an institute whose members produced work, the output of which factored always in a measurement of worth. So that is one part of the background. Then C, at that meeting, turned the paper he was doodling on, and we recognized, yes, we can recognize this. It was a shield. But because it was black and white, it became necessary to signal according to the rules of heraldry. For the black and white designer to signal to the future colorist exactly what color should be placed where on the shield. The color for green was, the signal for green was an oblique line or lines slanting downwards from left to right. And you will see that on the shield, lines slanting downwards from left to right. Now, the colorist would then understand that that meant green. So that what was intended by the black and white designer was for the entire area to be solid green and to depict it in green lines slanting from left to right would cause an expert in heraldry to wonder what in God's name the Institute is trying to convey. No, President Peart, and everybody in future who might be called upon to defend what might appear to be a breach of the rules of heraldry, or perhaps, let us say, you have done something not strictly in conformity. The thing to do is to put on a brave face and say, that's not a mistake. We're not saying green upon green merely. We're saying that we intend to convey evergreen. So you might not think that story is too lurid, but at the time it was. No. Every predecessor has an obligation to enhance the career and the character of his successors. How well the predecessor succeeds is measured by the extent to which the predecessor is surpassed by his successors. And when I look at the list of illustrious presidents, past and present, of our institute, and mark the extent to which they have magnified and exalted our institute to its pinnacle of eminence, girded with integrity. I am surpassed, and I'm happy about it and elated. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
And I invite you to salute our founding fathers. That was profound from our founding fathers. Sorry for my corny use of language there, in the founders' room. And I was tempted to ask Fillmore, and you don't have to answer, were you A, B, or C? You don't need to answer that. Yeah. And I'm also happy to see the green emerging in the book. I can't say that was, I know we were trying to be consistent with our colors in doing the book, but I don't know if we had that rich history. At this time, we're going to ask Elaine Robinson, who has been there from the inception, to come and give us the vote of thanks.
Masters of Ceremony, Bruce Scott, President Alison Peard, our author, Professor Patrick Bryan, council members, specially invited guests, good morning. I have to confess that this event for me has been one that I have been anticipating for so long, and I'm delighted to see it come to be. It has been something in the making for a number of years, and we thought we would have had this event probably a couple of years ago. But we were persistent, and I am really, really happy with what I have been experiencing today. And my heart is throbbing after having heard some more history just now. Right? So there have been some thank yous as we've gone through the ceremony, but these are really ICAJ's thank yous, because we are particularly happy for what we have seen here, another historic and significant event in the history of the Institute. So I'd like to start off by thanking our author, Professor Patrick Bryan, who unhesitatingly, at least it appeared unhesitatingly, took up our offer to author this book. And he has brought to it his talent and also, importantly, your calm temperament when we encountered the bumps along the way, but really, working with us until we got to the finish line. Much appreciated. We also had a number of past presidents who had something to do with the achievement of this product here. And you have heard one of them just now, Mr. Fillmore Ogle. And him and the late Jasper Burnett, who were really the persons who came up with the thought of us putting our history on paper. And we thank you sincerely for the contribution that you made, as well as what the late Jasper Burnett made, towards giving us documentation. Because when Bruce and I went to Jasper's house, he was showing us the pile of documents that he kept in order to ensure that he can restore the history and have it put in the print so we don't lose it. And I'm hoping that he's right now looking down on us and say, they did it. Really. It was through his initiative that we really pushed. Bruce and I said, let's try and get it done. We had other past presidents, those that were mentioned by Prof. Bryan, those who gave interviews to give us information to go into the book. We thank all of you who contributed to that. We also had past President C. Patricia Hale, Bruce Scott, and Donald Reynolds, who read the manuscript, and Rosie also, our executive director, also participated in that and gave their comments and feedback. We much appreciate it. Along the way, you heard of the fact that we had Angela Reed Gordon, who unfortunately passed during this process and was superseded, her successor was Maxine Francis, and they both contributed to getting a lot of documents that we needed in order to get information to put into the book. So we thank both of them. We also thank the editorial and publishing team, Ms. Maxine McDonough, for her thorough editorial work. We also had the team at UE Press, for their great input in more ways than one for the publication of the book. And we spoke earlier about the subcommittee, which is chaired by our past president here, Matt Bruce, and I also have to thank him for his patience as well, because we had a lot of stops and starts along the way. So all of those who invested the hours in getting us to the point where we are. We also express thanks to the book designers, Robert Harris and Siobhan Hearn. And behind the scenes, you know, there are people who are doing things, there are other persons in ICAJ digging up documents and so on as well. We want to express our thanks to them too. At the launch this morning, we want to thank our chairperson and the president and our author for your participation in today's events. We thank the representatives from the respective libraries for coming here and joining us for the presentation. I express thanks to the UE reps. I see a familiar faces, and I'm happy to see you all, and the library reps who turned up. I'd also like to express thanks. We had the unveiling of the photo and naming of this room as the Founders Room, and I want to thank the ICAJ Secretariat staff for putting the room in such a pristine state for today. And I know they worked hard in getting it this way, and I thank them all. We have both the persons who are here with us physically and those online, and I'd like to express my sincere thanks to everyone who has joined us this morning for taking the time out of your busy day to come at 10 a.m. in the morning for this event. Much appreciated. I also would like to thank our cameramen, technical team for your support for allowing everything to run smoothly. And finally, I just want to say, please buy the book. And make it a gift to persons who you know are connected with the ICAJ so that they can get and know all the good stuff that has been done, and to read it within the very excellent context within which the book has been written. And so thanks again, and all the very best. Take good care.
And Elaine can't thank herself, so I'm going to thank Elaine for her contribution when she was chair of public relations as well as a member of the subcommittee. And of course, we want to thank Alison in the background. You know, we've had to make a couple calls. There was a moment when I said, Alison, boy, you know, we have a little problem and it might cost us some money. I said, what? That's Alison, right? And of course, we want to thank our council for approving the first presentation of the budget when it was submitted a number of years ago. All right, guys, we're basically there. Thank you, Elaine, for the vote of thanks. Our president and Professor Brand will be available to sign copies of the book, and that's an incentive for you to buy one so that you can get it originally autographed. So again, thanks to our online. Elaine gave all the thank yous. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. And thanks to our technical team as well.